Hey guys, I'm Zelle, and more than likely you know that I have Zia Boutique here, and while we're really upset and sad that we couldn't catch up with Kristy Woodson Harvey in person in the shop with our fun book signing that we had planned, we know it's all for the better part of our health and our safety. So that being said, we're really excited for the two of us to catch up and share this with you guys as well. So in case you've missed it, her new book, Feels Like Falling, comes out in just a few short days. We've been accepting pre-orders through the store as well. So I'm going to give Kristy a chance to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about this amazing book.
Yay! Well, thank you so much for having me, Zelle. And as all of you can probably tell, the wonders of Zoom. I'm not actually in the store with Zelle, but doesn't it look like it? I'm missing
It looks
shopping.
better than my background, and I'm in here.
It's amazing. So the wonders never cease, but I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me, Zelle, and for doing this. It's just been such a bright spot. It's sad not to go on a real book tour. And we were, of course, planning this great in-person event, and we were going to have all these fun friends there, but that's okay. But I am just excited to be here. And it's really cool because I actually knew Zelle from Southern Style Blog before I even knew about Zia Boutique. So that was really cool. And we've sort of had this connection all along, which brings us here today. And as Zelle said, my new book, Feels Like Falling, releases April 28th. So just a few days. And you do have the opportunity to buy it early from Zelle. I know a lot of you have pre-ordered and your personalized copies are waiting for you. So thank you so much for doing that. And Zelle will actually have signed copies too, which makes her one of the very few places that has actual signed books. A lot of stores are going to have little signed book plates that you can stick in the books, but there are not many places that are actually going to have real live signed books. So
and I can promise you guys, y'all don't want to miss this book. No. It's a good one.
Thank you. But Feels Like Falling is actually my 6th novel. I've also written the Peachtree Bluff series. And then my first 2 books were Dear Carolina and Lies and Other Acts of Love.
And Feels Like read all of them.
You have?
Yes, every single book.
Stars.
Now
I love it. Feels Like Falling is about Gray and Diana, who are 2 women from very different worlds who meet on what is arguably one of the worst days of their lives. So at a time when Diana could use a little good luck and Gray could use a little good karma, Gray inadvertently gets Diana fired from her job, which is not ideal. But it does thrust these 2 women together in this sort of extraordinary way. And little do they know that this rocky start will actually lead to what will end up being a truly defining relationship in both of their lives. And so they come together, during this time of difficulty in their families, difficulty in their love lives, and end up helping each other sort of rewrite their stories and create what I like to call happily ever after, the sequel, because sometimes we all need a second chance, right? But I do feel like this is a good quarantine read. I think it's an uplifting book. I think it's funnier than some of my other books. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, but I think it was a perfect time for this book to come out because it's about women supporting other women. It's about friendship, and it's about all these things. So I'm really excited to share it with y'all.
It's such a good book. I had the opportunity to get my hands on an early copy. And I think that we can definitely all agree that this is unprecedented times where our schedules are all different. Clearly we're communicating via Zoom and we had these big plans to catch up in person. And there was one day that I was feeling particularly overwhelmed and I thought, I'm just going to slow down for a few minutes. I'm going to sit outside. It was a gorgeous day and I pretty much read the book in a sitting, and it gave me an escape, which I think is what Kristy's awesome about. All of her books have allowed me to just kind of sit and escape from what's going on, and that's what I love about novels. And so this is definitely a great read. It's a good beach read, a good quarantine read. The relationships in it, you just want to know what's going to happen next. And I think that's what is so captivating, both the romantic side but also very much so the friendship side.
Well, thank you. That's so awesome. And so one of the reasons that I was so excited about this event with you, and we were going to do something a little different. We've had an event at the store before and it was basically just like a signing, but I was like, no, we need to be in conversation because what you do really relates to this book. And so Gray, who is one of the protagonists of this book, started a blog when she was 20 years old, which you were probably like 20 also.
Yes, I think I was 21.
Yeah. I mean, super young. So yeah, I mean, so that kind of tracks. And she ends up parlaying it into this kind of like media company that makes her, very successful from a very young age. And I think, we see that we're in influencer culture, for better or worse. I love it. I think it's super fun. I'm sure you do too. But it is kind of a unique situation. And so I was just really interested in how you started Southern Style Blog, and, if you could just tell us a little bit about your journey with that.
Yeah. So Southern Style Blog came to be in my bedroom. I was home for Christmas break, and I had been reading blogs for a while, but never really acted on. I was just reading anonymously. I didn't have my own platform. This was really before, I think Instagram had been developed, but it was not anything that people posted to regularly. You couldn't even comment, I don't think, on Instagram posts at that point.
Yeah.
And so I think I really just found blogs through Google and through Pinterest. And one day I thought, you know what, I kind of want to have my own little creative platform. And I didn't really tell anyone. I think a few of my friends knew, and my mom and my grandmother signed up to have my posts like delivered to their inbox each day. But over the longest time, I think I had like 5 views, and they were probably 2 of those views.
Yes.
And then one day I was getting ready to go to an engagement party, and had gotten dressed up, and I asked my mom to snap a couple of pictures. The quality was terrible because it was on an old phone, way oversaturated and overfiltered. But I shared it to the blog, and that post just seemed to kind of blow up. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I want to start sharing what I'm wearing versus what I love that other people are wearing. So it just kind of evolved from there. And throughout the course, I've shared, of course, what I've been wearing, things that I love, sales, every so often some design stuff. I've documented my husband and I got married almost 3 years ago. So I documented our engagement and wedding process and the planning experience. And then of course, I share some behind the scenes things about what we do here at the shop. So, at a few years ago, people would send me DMs and say like, hey, where would you recommend getting a dress for this? Or what do you think I should wear to that? And so it kind of just evolved into a boutique where I thought I can give some people a place to come and shop. And it's been a very cool and fun experience for sure.
That's so awesome. And so, I love the way, I do feel like, I follow you on the shop site and I follow you on Southern Style Blog. And I do feel like the synergy there is really great, but you're not just posting things from the store. You're posting things from all over the place. Like you're really giving people inspiration. So I think that's really cool that and I think that's working for people really well when you can use your platform to support your real job, but it's not necessarily all you're talking about. So people aren't like, here she is again, selling whatever, I think
I've had people ask me that too. Like, how is that balance, because you have the store, but you share other stuff. Well, at the end of the day, while obviously I love everything that comes out of Zia Boutique, I still love to find a good sale on Amazon. I love Revolve and Nordstrom. And, there's so many great things out there that you can shop. And I like being that resource for people. And, speaking of that synergy, I think when I first started following you, it was really because I was super into your books. So kind of tell me about how your blogging experience started.
Okay. So my mom and I have an interior design blog called Design Chic. So it is different from the books. It doesn't relate quite as well as your two things. But we started the blog in 2010. I had no idea I was ever going to write a book. I certainly never thought I was going to be an author. That was not even on my radar. And it's sort of like you said, we were both redoing houses. We were basically just like sharing pictures with each other. And I remember calling mom and, we were talking one day and I said, we should start a blog. And she was like, oh, great. What's a blog? It was, people weren't doing this as much as they are now. And we honestly thought, okay, we'll do this for 6 months. Like once the houses are finished, we'll be all done with this and that'll be great. And we will have done it and it'll be a good experience. We'll learn something new. And I totally relate to your story about, getting 5 views and like 2 of them being from, your mom and your grandmother. And it was the same thing. We didn't tell anyone that we were doing it for years. Like I didn't even tell my friends. I remember one day one of my friends being like, I was searching for something online last night and I came across this great blog. And finally I was like, went to the about page and she's like, and it's yours. And it was like one of my best friends. And she didn't even know we were doing this because we were like a little bit like, is it good? I don't
I know. That's exactly how I felt too.
Yeah. And then, you know, the whole social media thing is like just a whole new world because we were really lucky. We got on Pinterest really, really early. And so our Pinterest grew really quickly. Now we
I
drug
love following your Pinterest. So much good stuff on there.
Thank you. Well, we love Pinterest, but we drug our feet a little on Instagram, but we're in it now. We love it. It's good.
Right.
It's my favorite. Mom loves Pinterest the best. I love Instagram the best. Our poor neglected Facebook and Twitter.
I tweet during the Bachelor seasons and that's about it. That's all I've got on
Well,
Twitter.
and I like Twitter a lot for just like chatting with people.
Yeah.
You know, more like, oh, hey, and like reaching out and like, I really love that you're doing this or whatever, but not so much for like, you know, displaying things and all of that. So it's been kind of an interesting genesis. And I think the two things, like, I think they feed each other well, but they're not necessarily related, but I'm kind of glad because I think it would be really hard. Like, what would I say every day on Instagram about being a writer? Like, there's not, you know, so it's nice to be able to talk about houses and then when I have a book coming out.
Right. Well, how did you end up becoming an author? I mean, you know, you said that it really wasn't even on your radar, and here we are 6 novels later.
I know. I mean, it was a crazy kind of thing. So I had been to journalism school and I had a master's in English. So I certainly had like a writing background. This was not just completely out of the wild blue yonder, but I had taken a lot of creative writing classes in college and I didn't like them.
Yeah.
So I just always thought, okay, well, I'm supposed to tell real people's stories. I'm going to write for a magazine. I'll write for a newspaper. And I ended up getting married and moving to a little Eastern North Carolina town and not writing at all. I was actually working in finance because they're just, as you can imagine, there are not a lot of writing jobs and we're little tiny towns. But I started just getting all these ideas and I knew they were story ideas. And I knew they were bigger than things I had written before. Like I would get these ideas and I would think, well, no, that's not a short story. It must be a novel, but I don't know how to write a novel, but which is a silly thing to say now because you don't know how to do anything until you do it. You know? But so I actually wrote a couple manuscripts before I sort of thought, I think I'm going to try this. Like, I think this is something I could do. I think it could be like a real thing. And then I wrote Dear Carolina. It was so funny. Little Will was like 2 days old when I got the idea for Dear Carolina.
Oh.
And so I was writing it like when I'd be up in the middle of the night feeding him. And it was like the craziest time in the world to try to write a book. But I think that kind of made it more special, like that it was my first one. And so I had signed with a literary agent, which was shocking to me. But Dear Carolina ended up winning a writing contest, and an editor at Penguin Random House was one of the final round judges. And so she ended up buying that book out of the contest. And
that's amazing.
It was amazing. I mean, and then she contracted me for Lies and Other Acts of Love. And then I actually had an editor at Simon & Schuster like call me and say, will you write a series for me? And that's where Peachtree Bluff came from. And so weirdly enough, I had already written Feels Like Falling before Peachtree Bluff.
Really?
Yeah. And so that was such a fun exercise for me because, you know, I'd written it in like 2016. And so by the time I came back to it, and she had said the whole time, she was like, I love Gray and Diana. I want Gray and Diana. It's so funny because it's been Feels Like Falling the whole time. And she never could remember the title. She'd be like, I want Gray and Diana. And so that was kind of a fun thing to be able to come back and completely rewrite a book 3 years later and be like, wow, the world has changed a lot.
Right.
So that was kind of cool. And I feel like in the beginning, especially Diana, like I feel like she's sort of, you know, saved by this man who sweeps her way on the way. And that's like not the story anymore at all. So that was kind of interesting. But so yeah, I mean, I guess writing was a surprise to me, and which leads me to something I wanted to ask you. Have you had sort of any surprises, like being in this world and, you know, starting with I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what has surprised you the most about kind of becoming, you know, an influencer? I hate that word, but I don't know what else to say. I mean, because blogger doesn't cover it anymore.
No, blogger, it used to make sense, but now that word doesn't really.
It doesn't really apply because it's not just the blog. It's like all sorts of things. Yeah.
I think what has surprised me is the community that has come from it. I've met some really cool people solely because of blogging. I've got 2 great friends who I met. Well, one I actually already knew, from when I was in college, but another friend of mine, we met solely because of blogging. We had both been offered a chance to try out ClassPass, which is like the exercise thing. And we met for a class one day, and that was at least 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and we still are friends. So I think that's just so cool. I think that's the biggest thing. You never realize like how much of a community you can have. And it's hard, I think, finding that good dynamic of being true to yourself and sharing who you are as a person without oversharing. And that's always been a fine line for me. When I was blogging the first year or two that Instagram was out, my Instagram was actually still private because I just wasn't ready to relinquish that part of me, just for anyone in the world to see it.
Yes.
And I think that probably did set me back in growing my Instagram, but that it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I love the people I've met. I've had actually people come into the store who follow my blog from other states. And I think that's the coolest thing in the entire world.
That's amazing.
So it never ceases to amaze me too. Every so often someone will say, I was looking up a travel guide and I ended up finding yours on Pinterest or something. And it's just a cool thing because I love writing. That's a big reason I started blogging, was because it was a creative writing outlet for me. I was also I was an English major in college. And so writing has always been a part of who I am. And while I have not written a book, that's always been a really cool thing that I've been interested in. And the blog has given me an opportunity to do some writing on the side. So I just never really expected it to expand into what it is now.
It's such a surprise. And I love what you said about all the people that you've met, because I feel exactly the same way. I mean, I think that is the biggest surprise, both in the community. I mean, I feel like, especially, 10 years ago, I have all these friends. Like I'm doing one of these in a few days with like a designer from Charlotte who like, I never would have known her, but we just happened to start blogging at the same time. And you get this little community and all these people, which is just, it's so fun. And then like sometimes you meet them in real life, and that's so cool. And
I mean, that's kind of how I feel like. I feel like at this point we're friends, but I still feel like I'm talking with a celebrity every time we catch up, which I think is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, and that is so funny too, because I mean, you're so used to seeing these people, and like, it's a little bit intimidating. Like I remember coming in the store the first time and meeting you and being like, because I've like only seen you behind the screen, and so then to like meet you in real life, and it's fun and easy and great, but it is a little bit of like a strange experience when you're meeting these people and you follow them.
Know them. I mean, I've got several people that I've literally never met in person in my entire life, but I would consider them a friend of sorts because I feel like, I've followed them through engagement and wedding and having babies.
Right.
Chat once a week on Instagram or email. It's just the wildest thing.
No, it totally is. And that's like, I used to feel really silly when I would be like, oh yeah, she's my blog friend or she's my Instagram friend. But now I feel like it's kind of normal. I'm like, and like, I'll finally meet them in person and it's like, oh yeah, I've known you for like a decade. What do you mean? We're super tight.
That's how it is with you and me. I mean, we've only met in person a handful, once or twice.
Yeah, but we like talk all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird, but I think it's cool. And especially in times like this, to be able to have that community to lean on. And, for me, I mean, if I didn't have friends like you who said, oh my gosh, let's do something about the book, even though you can't have a real event, like, I don't know what I would do, because I rely so heavily on, being on tour and being in front of people. So to have people like you who will like share their platform with me, it's so nice. It really is.
Well, I'm certainly bummed that we couldn't have like an official book tour stop here, but I am excited that the world is adapting enough right now that we can do things like this and that people can still kind of get a glimpse into who the person is behind this, which I
love it. And I totally related to what you were saying too about like not letting people kind of in or like see you. And I think that's why I resisted being on Instagram, because I felt like people were so, and then even when we started doing it, it's like all design pictures when you look back, a long time ago. And I mean, I don't think Mom and I even had our picture on our blog for years. And we never talked about like really who we were or what we were doing. And it wasn't like I thought, oh, someone's going to like come steal me. It wasn't anything like that. It was just weird. Like I just didn't want to let people kind of in behind the curtain.
And you always are interested too in how much do people want to hear?
Right.
How much do they want to know?
Right.
But for me, from a consumer standpoint, I mean, like obviously I love your books, clearly, but I love getting to know like all the things that have influenced why you write the way you do, how your stories come to be. Like, I feel like that for me can help me appreciate things even more. And I love that that's what social media has allowed us to do, is to get to know people on a greater scale that we would have never been able to connect with.
No, I totally agree. And now I feel like every time I meet an author in person, and I don't know if you feel like this, because I think maybe you had read some of the books before you met me, but do you read them in a different way? Like now that you know me?
Because I feel like I don't know, it's hard because on the one hand, when I read, I check out. Like,
right.
That is my escape and my away. That's my escape.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like I can like picture you in it in a way.
Yeah. No, I hear that a lot. And especially after, like, even if it's like, I think people that I've known forever, it's always kind of been that experience, I guess, because now, you know, people that I've never read and then I read them, like I hear them in their stories.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But I do think that, you know, for me, like obviously meeting authors is such a fun part of what I do. And so people that I've read forever and ever, and then I meet them and I never read their stories the same. And it's not in a negative way. It's just funny. It's like you have this insight into like who they are and why they wrote that or what that could have been about, or it's so crazy. It really is. So do you have any like future goals, plans, like anything that you're, you know, kind of working on? Well, besides writing a book, which we're all waiting for.
That is a big goal of mine. And who knows if I will ever see a published novel, but I've always wanted to write. My grandmother really instilled in me from an early age the importance of English and grammar and all that good stuff. And it just fostered love of writing. She asked me for years to write a children's book, and I still have not done that. So anyway, maybe I'll start with a children's book, and then I've actually got a novel in the works, but who knows if it'll ever see the light of day. So for now, I'll just hang out with my characters, you know, at home.
But it's fun.
It is. It's
like, even if, and in some ways, and like, you can't tell people this, and no one could have told me this, I would not have believed them. But I feel like when you're writing that book for yourself and you have no idea if anyone else is ever going to read it, there is a purity to that once you get published, you'll never have that again. So I feel like there's something about, and trust me, I would not go back. Like this is not, but there is something, you know, I always say to people, I know it's so hard because you have your eye on the prize, like you want to get published, but to be able to write those manuscripts with just that clear voice, that it's just your voice, it's only your opinion, you don't have anyone else like thrown in the mix with you. It's just, there's something kind of magical about it.
It's cool because I feel like the characters in a sense are my friends. They're like people I know, but no one else knows them.
Right.
And so it's just a cool, I don't know, it's cool. We'll see what happens with that. But
cool.
Other goals, I mean, I would love to see the store continue to grow. We've always had an Instagram presence and a website pretty much from the beginning. Right. But this whole pandemic has definitely caused us to really have to dive in and move things online. I mean, we are not operating in store currently. So everything that we do is virtual. So I would love to see that continue to grow and just continue blogging. So that's kind of that. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of living my dream right now, honestly. I mean, this is what I dreamed about it for a long time, and I get to be here doing it, and it's so fun. The Peachtree Bluff series has been optioned for TV, so that's super cool. Yeah. So I've been kind of like, it's been a long process. Like I've probably been working through this with them for like 6 or 7 months, but obviously it's kind of an extraordinary time right now, so things are like halted a little bit, but it's so cool. And like I love one of the major studios bought the rights to it, so I don't know where it would end up or where its home would eventually be, but just like working with them and kind of getting a like behind the curtain peek of what happens has been so cool for me. Even if I never see it on TV, it's just been like such a cool experience to get to sort of watch that. But ultimately I would love to see, you know, one of my books, you know, on TV or as a movie or something like that. I mean, I think that's something every author wants to do until it happens. And then you're like, oh.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
I had to pick, and this might be a tough question, especially because this book is so fresh. Actually, we're not even going to use this book. If we had to pick two actresses to play in Dear Carolina, who would you pick?
Oh, in Dear Carolina.
Yes. So let's not even do this one. Let's do
Back in the day. Okay. So that's really funny because do you know Jamie Presley? My name's Earl. Okay, and she's from North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
She actually optioned Dear Carolina for film, and like she was gonna star in it. She was gonna play Khaki.
That's amazing.
And so I always see her as Khaki now because and I mean, she did an amazing job with it. Like it was sold, had an air date, like she did really well, but it was a lesson to me right from the get-go because I mean, this happened. She optioned the book before it even was released, which was like the biggest thrill of my life. It was so exciting. And then, you know, just a couple little things, like one little thing can happen and the whole project falls apart. So, I don't know. And I would actually I would still love to see it made, and she ages in reverse. So it wouldn't matter. She could still play Khaki, and a few years later it would make no difference. But I had really kind of had her in my head. I don't know about the other ones. Oh, and she, so Graham is Khaki's husband in Dear Carolina, and she wanted one of the Hemsworths to play him, and I was like,
I mean, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really beat that. So I mean, that would be great.
I would be 100% fine with that.
Yeah. The only thing that I really someone told me early on, right when they read Slightly South of Simple, that they saw Diane Lane, was who they pictured as Ansley. And so I kind of pictured her as that. But then somebody mentioned to me Callista Flockhart recently, and I was like, she would be really good because she's the right age, and you can see her she's very much this vibrant 50-something woman that could be having her own fresh start and new fun life, but also mother and grandmother to these children. She could really pull that off, I feel like. So but it's always fun to think about. And then people will say, and no one has said this ever, but I think I should watch more TV because I feel like I don't know the actors and actresses as well as I used to. And there are all these Netflix stars now, and all. And so I'm watching, but I don't necessarily know who they are like I used to. So
that's kind of how I am too. Yeah. It is cool though. I'm always interested to see because when I read, the characters definitely develop a look. I mean, we take what you write, but that turns into what I picture someone to look like.
Yes.
So it's just, I'm always so intrigued by what others who are reading versus the author think about what characters, who they are.
Right. Well, and it's really interesting. And my film agent actually told me recently, she was like, when you're writing from now on, you need to be thinking about who you want to play these characters, describe them, think about who your hero is in this story in real life. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And she's like, because then we can hand it to them and be like, hey, this is you.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I obviously just want Reese Witherspoon to play all of them. All the time. She's so good. I've been watching Little Fires Everywhere, and I'm just, you watched
it? I haven't started this yet.
Okay. It's so good. And it's very suspenseful, which is not usually my thing, but it's so good. But they're releasing an episode every Wednesday night, old school style. Right. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have not watched a TV show like this in so long. Until I'm like, is it Wednesday yet? Is it Wednesday yet? And I'm filming this little Facebook Live show with some other authors, with Mary Kay Andrews and Mary Alice Monroe and Patty Callahan Henry and Kristy. And we're taping. I mean, no one tapes. I don't know. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
We're streaming on Wednesday nights at 7. And so lately I've had a couple of other events on Wednesdays, and then I'll have that. And then by the time that's over, I'm like, I'm too tired. I'm just going to wait till tomorrow when I can really be into the show. But it's so good that I think I'm going to watch it over again when I'm finished.
Really? Yeah. My husband and I have been watching Ozark, it's intense.
Yeah. I've heard that's intense. I haven't started that yet. I haven't felt like I was in the right frame of mind right now. I was finishing up Modern Family, and which I'm sad.
Yeah. So. Ozark is unique.
Yeah. I can't wait to watch it. Anyway, we're on a tangent, but so What are you like most proud of? Like, do you have any accomplishments that you feel like I'm so proud of?
Honestly, I think that my store is one of the things I'm most proud of. I mean, from the time I was a little girl, I wanted to have a business. I wanted to have a clothing store. I would tell my parents when I was little that that's what I wanted. And I can't tell you how many times I said to them, like, I just really want a boutique. Like that's what I can see myself doing with my life. And I honestly, even when I was saying it, I don't think that I ever really realized that it could come true. And I'll never forget standing in here. It was the night of we've been open for a couple of weeks, but we had our grand opening party, and I was talking to some friends, and I was standing here looking, and I thought, holy cow, this has happened. Like, this is real. This is what I get to do every day. And it's kind of like what you said with living your dream. I mean, this is my dream job. And so it doesn't come without its challenges. I mean, I think that on the one hand, some people think, oh, retail's so glamorous. It's not. I mean, the rest of my day is going to include mopping the floors and scrubbing toilets and all that fun stuff, because that's, what business owners do. But it really, the people that I've had the opportunity to meet at, our customers feel like family to me now. And I think that that is one of the things I underestimated. I mean, I've always loved people, but I feel like I know people on a different level now. And so I think that's, I mean, aside from, my family and my friendships, I mean, I think that this store is definitely the thing I'm most proud of.
Well, and I think people underestimate how difficult it is, like, to be a business owner and to be an entrepreneur. And you have to take some really big risks, and you have to know that, I mean, I don't know the statistic, but it's something well over 50% of businesses fail in their first year. So even just being able to pull that off is just, it's incredible. And you have to have guts to do it. I mean, you can't just, it's not just something that I decided one day I'm going to open a store. Like, there's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of risk involved. And I think it's super cool. So, and I'm glad that you did it. And I'm glad that it's going so well.
Thanks. How about you? What do you think is your biggest or greatest accomplishment?
I should have known the answer to this since I asked it to I mean, little Will, my son, he's one of my greatest accomplishments, obviously. And like you said, I mean, I think just being a published author, I think staying in this world as long as I have, things change in the publishing world so quickly. And I never imagined that I would kind of be where I am right now. And at this point where I'm really, where this is a career for me. I feel like even when people, do get a book published, most people that can't be their job. I mean, it can be, but so to be in a place where like, this is my actual career. And I feel proud of that, because it's hard. It's like what you said, people think about us, writing these books and then they float out into the world. But I mean, it is blood, sweat, and tears to get people, normally I think I do like 80 speaking events a year. I'm all over the country. It's so exciting and it's so fun. But there's so many things behind the scenes that we're doing that are not glamorous and are not fun. And people are like, oh, like they'll see me on tour and they're like, oh my gosh, that looks so amazing. And I'm like, no one saw like the 2 canceled flights and the 6 hours in the airport and the 2 hours of sleep, a gas station burrito, like in your cigarette smelling rental car. Like no one sees any of that.
All of that.
And I try to like let people into that part of it, because I think it's funny, like to see, oh, this is what it's really like. But on the other hand, like it is kind of glamorous and it is really fun. So I go back and forth.
That's such a good point though. I mean, from an outsider's perspective, I mean, I definitely have some favorite authors who I'm always looking forward to their next release, but there are definitely some books I've read that, to be honest, I've not followed the path of the author, or maybe they've only released one book. But for me, I mean, especially at this point, I mean, I've read all of your books. So I'm excited for the release of the next one. And I think that that's huge for you, that you've got, this community that's so supportive. And, clearly it's based off of the love that you give your characters and just the easiness that it is to read. And I think that's huge, and definitely something to be proud of, for sure.
That's so nice. And, and I have to say, like, now more than ever, I mean, as you well know, creating that community, it's where your heart is, but it also takes up an immense amount of your time. But for me, like, it's been one of the joys to get to have this kind of community that I can, you know, reach out to and relate to online. And thank goodness, because I honestly don't think we'll look back and notice Feels Like Falling being any different than any of my other releases, which I think is crazy, because there's so many books right now that are just dying because, you know, and part of it is, you know, it is my sixth book. And I definitely, I mean, I think there's some books that, you know, are kind of like an overnight big success, and then like you never hear about the person again or whatever. And that is definitely, there was no like big overnight success. It was putting out a book, getting some readers, putting out another book, getting some more readers, you know? And so I feel like it's grown really organically, which is sort of how I feel about the blog. And I think you probably could agree with that,
Absolutely.
that organic growth, it's maybe not as flashy, and it's certainly more hard work, and it's maybe sometimes it feels a little bit hard, but I feel like ultimately, you know, you get real relationships from that, and that's kind of the reward.
Right. Sorry, Sophie is making herself
Oh
comfortable.
my gosh, she's so cute.
She's been hanging out on her blanket this whole time.
I didn't even notice.
I know, she's pretty good.
She like blends in with the blanket.
I know, her blanket, that's her thing. We have blankets. I have one in my car, in our bedroom, in our living room, at the shop. I mean, lives her best life. But I think you made a good point a second ago too about, you know, overnight success versus, I mean, for me, my first book that I read of yours was Lies and Other Acts of Love. And then of course I delved into the Peachtree Bluff series. But Dear Carolina was your first book, and it was the last one I read. I mean, I just finished it the other day. So, you know, I feel like no matter what part of your book journey people hop in, there's something for everyone. And if you enjoy one, you'll enjoy all of them. So I think that's neat.
Well, thank you. Well, I hope so. Well, I can't thank you enough. I hope people have enjoyed this. I had the best time. This was so fun, like just to get to talk to you and catch up, and look at us.
I know.
Letting everyone in. I mean, we did not have. That's right. So I'm so excited. And I do just want to encourage people. Zelle has copies of Feels Like Falling. This is such an important time to, you know, support your local stores and support local businesses who really need our love right now. And support your local author who really needs your love right now.
I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, thankfully people are being so supportive of small business and of entrepreneurs. And we are certainly appreciative for everyone who's purchased their pre-order copy. Kristy is doing personalized copies. And then, like she said at the beginning, we will have a great stack of signed copies here at the shop. Hopefully y'all will be able to shop with us in store soon. So we will have some copies there, and we do ship across the country. So if you are in a faraway state, we would love to get your hands on your very own copy of Feels Like Falling.
Okay, I love it. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it so much. It was so fun. And before we know it, we'll get to do it in person.
That's exactly right. I'm ready for actual Bloody Marys in the shop.
Me too. We should have had Bloody Marys while we were doing this.
I'm just over here in my water, but that's fine.
Shoot. Anyway, well, thank you.
Absolutely. I will see you soon.